Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay and the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
Hey there, Duke fans. Long time no see, long time no talk to. It has been a little while since we had our last DBR podcast, but we are back because this Saturday is the start of the Blue Devil football season, so the podcast is back in force. Now, I have good news and bad news this week. The good news is that myself, Jason Evans, and my colleague Sam Klein. Sam, say hi.
Hi, everybody.
Sam and I are both here. Donald is AWOL. Donald, I have no idea where he is. I think he traveled to another foreign country. I think Donald's in the CIA or something like that.
He's in a foreign country. More than that, we cannot disclose.
Yes, right. We're sworn to secrecy. We could tell you, but we'd have to kill you. Donald isn't here. And while I'm sure all of you at home listening to this podcast are crying and so upset to be missing the dulcet tones of Donald Wine, we have a replacement for him. Joining Sam and I this week is the DBR's resident football expert. He's been a member of the DBR moderation community. He is our resident naval expert who spent 30 years in the armed forces. We salute you, sir, for that. He now lives in Norfolk, Virginia, makes it back to Duke games as often as possible, and he's been going to Duke football games since the mid-1960s. I am talking about none other than Bob Green. Bob, say hi to the masses.
Hello, DBR.
Bob, thanks a lot for being with us. We're going to do this podcast a little differently than we do some of the other podcasts. We're going to start by talking to you, interviewing you about football, and then folks are going to get to a couple other topics, some Duke basketball recruiting, and we're going to reflect a little bit on the Olympics and Coach K's tenure with Team USA. But we're going to start with the football. We are just days away from Duke's first game at Wally Wade against North Carolina Central. For folks who don't remember, last year Duke beat NC Central 55-0, 55-0. The year before was a significantly closer game. We only won 52-13. So, well, I mean, I'm not sure how much you can glean from a team like that, but Bob is here to help us figure out what we need to do about Duke football. And Sam, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you start with the questioning for Bob. And I hope you are going to begin with the questions at quarterback.
Yep. Thanks, Jason. And thank you again, Bob, for being here. And hello again to everybody, because it's been a while. And I believe that because we are recording on the 31st, although I don't believe that the podcast is going to go up on the 31st, although since we are recording, we can maintain our streak of having at least recorded once in every month since we started back in November of 2014. So good job to us on that. So Bob, let's get started. As Jason mentioned, we'll start at the quarterback position, which is the most interesting position on the field, but also the most interesting position potentially for Duke this year. Thomas Sirk, it was recently announced he was supposed to be the returning starter this year. For his senior season, he was named a captain, but he retore his Achilles recently in practice, and it now sounds like his Duke career may be over. But the staff announced this week that Daniel Jones, it sounds like, is going to be starting at quarterback ahead of Parker Boehm. What do we know about Daniel Jones, and why was he picked over Boehm for the starting role?
Daniel Jones, redshirt freshman, so he was on the team last year. This is his second year in the program. He's out of Charlotte. He has good size of 6'5", over 200 pounds. So the interviews that I've read with Coach Cutcliffe, he talks about his decision-making ability, and he has a strong arm. So he's someone that prides himself on accuracy throwing the football. So those are the things that we know about him from the interviews. And obviously the big unknown is that he's never played in a college football game. So on Saturday evening, we'll get to see how he adjusts to Division I college football and everything that comes with that.
That's a pretty big unknown.
Yeah.
Having never played the game.
Yeah.
Even and it's interesting, I think, because we've seen Parker Boehm a little bit in, last year there were blowouts and such where we got to see him play.
Cirk got hurt and he played in one game.
Right.
He threw 78 passes.
Boehm started and played the entire game against Pittsburgh. That lets us gives us another glimpse into Jones, and that this is Boehm's fourth year in the program, and he has a significant amount of playing experience under his belt. But through spring training and fall camp, Daniel Jones beat him out.
My recollection is that Boehm wasn't bad against Pittsburgh. I mean, he wasn't he wasn't great. He didn't light things up, but Boehm had a fairly decent game against Pittsburgh. I think for Daniel Jones to beat him out for the position, that's a pretty big deal. That's quite a voice of confidence in Daniel Jones.
That's definitely the way I'm looking at it. So
yeah,
I'm excited to see him play. So
it's also interesting just because he wasn't a major recruit or anything, so we don't really know much about him. But he was featured in Bruce Feldman's college football preview this week. So there's some attention being paid. Let's move on from quarterback. I wanted to next look at the offensive line. I know that a lot of guys have graduated. We're putting a lot of new guys into starting roles, and offensive line has kind of been a strength for Duke, avoiding sacks, creating holes for the running game. What do we think we can expect from the offensive line this year? Is it possibly going to be a step back, or are those new guys ready to step up and fill those spots?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a step back at all. I believe offensive line is going to be a team strength. It's been a team strength for the last several years. It will be again this year. We have 3 returning starters. That's been a constant over the last 3 or 4 years, is that Duke has returned 3 starters and brought 2 new starters in each year. So we have Tanner Stone and Gabe Bradner and Casey Blazer all back as starters. Then they'll bring in Austin Davis at center, and the other starting guard, Zach Baker, who's a redshirt freshman. So we have 3 starters back and 2 new guys, and once again, offensive line is going to be team strength. I have some notes written on a piece of paper for this podcast, and under strengths, offensive line is one of the items that I have written down. So no, I don't expect a step back at all this year.
And then looking at the rest of the offensive skill positions, a lot of new guys also around there. Give us a name of one of those offensive skill players, either a wide receiver or a running back or a tight end, who you think might blossom into a star, because Duke has certainly had their fair share of stars out in the offensive backfield and then also out in the wide receiver corps in recent years.
Yeah, at wide receiver, Jonathan Lloyd has been announced as a starter. He'll be starting in slot receiver, and so that's a guy that has an opportunity. Of course, TJ Roming, who started and played significantly last year as a true freshman, is back. So he's also a guy that really could have a breakout year. He had a breakout year as a freshman, but he could even take that next step in this season. So I think wide receiver is in the skill position. That's the position that is a little bit less unknown, because when you turn to running back, we are really strong at running back with Jalea Duncan and Sean Wilson and then Joe Ajibi. So I'm really looking forward to seeing Duncan and Wilson run the ball, and then hopefully we get some receivers that step up and because balance is the key. I think the games when Duke has played the best, it's when they've achieved balance on offense, a good balance between passing and running the football.
Yeah, and I think that has especially come on the last couple of years as we've gone from quarterbacks who have been much more traditional, like Thaddeus Lewis and Sean Renfrey. The last couple starting quarterbacks that Duke has featured, Anthony Boone and Thomas Sirk, I think it's fair to say have been a little bit more limited in their passing ability, but have made up for it with stronger running games. And in addition, the running back core has gotten better, as has the offensive line the last few years. So you've seen more of a balance maybe than Coach Cutcliffe would have liked to have had. But it certainly hasn't hurt the production of the offense. Let's move to the other side of the ball. The biggest thing that Duke fans will notice this year that's different from last year is that Jeremy Cash won't be all over the field making every single tackle out of the sort of specialty position that Coach Cutcliffe assigned to him. He was notionally a safety in the Duke defense, but he often lined up like a linebacker or even a defensive lineman, made a lot of tackles behind the line of scrimmage. So Duke is really going to miss Cash this year since he's playing for the Panthers. How is the defensive backfield going to recover from losing such an all-star player? Is perhaps Devon Edwards going to take some of that load, or are there other guys who are ready to step into that job?
The strike safety position is the position that Cash played, and that position will be filled with Corbin McCarthy. Corbin McCarthy is a fifth-year senior who has played significantly. He played the entire bowl game. As you remember, Cash had surgery on his wrist and didn't play in the bowl game against Indiana. So Corbin McCarthy is obviously not going to replace Jeremy Cash, but he is a skilled player, and he actually could be a step up over Cash in the area of pass coverage. So while Cash was a tremendous player against the run, he did have a weakness in pass coverage. So what we're hearing on Corbin McCarthy is that he's a better pass covering safety. So I think he's going to fill in quite nicely. Our secondary is going to be tremendously strong. We have 5 guys back there in our 4-2-5 defense. 4 of them are seniors, and the 5th guy is a junior, Brian Fields. So that's secondary is going to be very, very strong.
And then as you look around the field, you mentioned all the experience in the defensive backfield. It seems like from reading some of the reports that there are a number of true freshmen that might get opportunities to play this year. Any of those guys stand out as people who are going to be real major impact players for Duke this season?
Well, on the defensive line at defensive end, and recent press conference, Coach Cutcliffe named 3 true freshman defensive ends that he said could play. So Terrell Lucas, James Hornbuckle, and Chidi Okanya. I'm not sure I pronounced that name correctly, but those are 3 true freshmen that Coach Cutcliffe said will get an opportunity to play at defensive end. And so that's so last year our secondary was maligned at times because of all the success teams had passing the football against us. But the truth is we didn't generate a pass rush. So when the quarterback, and the game that really stands out to me is the Pittsburgh game, where the Pittsburgh quarterback stood back there all day picking out receivers to throw the ball to. So we really need to be able to generate a pass rush, and that's where a lot of those true freshmen, redshirt freshmen, and sophomores on the defensive line are going to need to make an impact this year. And we also have a new defensive line coach, Ben Albert, who came to us from Boston College. So the impact of Ben Albert and the defensive line is going to be a big indicator of how Duke's defense performs this year.
I seem to recall Boston College having a rather stout defense last year. Yes.
Yes.
So looking forward to the effect of the positive effect of new coaching on that side. I'm going to turn it over to Jason to ask a couple of program questions. I was more interested in the position by position stuff. So Jason, why don't you take it away?
Yeah. So Bob, you were talking about true freshmen who are going to have an impact on the team, and I wanted to get into Duke's recruiting. A few years ago, it felt like Cut was mostly looking for, local kids, maybe undervalued guys. A lot of them would be fast, speedy kind of players that he just sort of recruited speed as much as he could. But he wasn't really even trying necessarily to land guys that would be considered, 3 or 4 star players. But Duke's recruiting has really changed in the past couple of years, hasn't it? Talk a little bit about that and what we've seen from Cut on the recruiting trail.
Yeah, the recruiting has steadily increased. When you look at the stars, you go to the recruiting sites and the 3-star, the 4-star recruits. Coach Cutcliffe has repeatedly stated that he's building a program. And I think recruiting is a good indicator of that. As the program started to win, the recruiting became more productive. So last year's, the guys that are true freshmen this year, that class had, according to the various recruiting services, about 8 or 9 4-star recruits on it. So, and Duke's a program that just a few years ago was lucky to get a couple of 3-star recruits. We were living off of 2-star recruits, and now all of a sudden we're getting 4-star recruits, and a lot of them. So the recruiting has definitely increased. The 2017 class is also maybe not quite up to par with the 2016 class, but still a very good class. And obviously, the quarterback out of California, 4-star, Jack Sears, is the marquee recruit to date. So recruiting is definitely something that continues to get better.
Yeah, Jack Sears was a huge deal. I mean, I used to notice when Duke would recruit a kid, I'd sort of look and say, oh, I wonder who they got, who the kid got offers from other than Duke. And sometimes it would be teams like North Carolina Central. It was pretty rare that Duke was taking players away from other BCS conference schools. And here we have Jack Sears, who had offers from USC and UCLA and had like every major program in the country. So it's a huge, huge coup for Cut to be recruiting at that level. I want to talk, speaking of other BCS teams and other high quality teams, our schedule this year is tougher than it's been in the past, and it gets tough pretty quickly. I mean, in September, in years past, it feels like Duke's always raced out to like a 4-5-0 or 4-5-1 record, and then sort of we've had our tougher ACC games. Well, this year we've got both Northwestern and Notre Dame right at the very, very beginning of the season in September. Do you think Duke is prepared for that quality of opponent? I speak specifically about Notre Dame. What have we seen in the past that says that Duke can compete with a team like that?
Yes, I think we are prepared. So I think this is another season where Duke's going to get off to a fast start. I realize I'm a homer for saying it, but we should have beat Northwestern last year. That game turned on 2 plays. 2 plays that went horribly bad for Duke, or if you're a Northwestern fan, two plays that went great. But
by the way, Duke must win that game because my niece is a freshman at Northwestern, and she and I have made a wager on that game. I was trying to get some points because it's at Northwestern, and she wouldn't hear anything of it. So we've got to win because I don't want to be forced to wear a Northwestern T-shirt at our next, family get-together. I cannot tolerate that. So I hope you're right, and we get off to a good start.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a tough game. There's no doubt about that. But it's definitely a winnable game. I think there's a good opportunity for Duke to get off to a 3-0 start. And then we have a very tough game at Notre Dame on the 24th of September. But then that's followed up by Virginia and Army. So 2 more winnable games. So 5-1 in the first 6 games is definitely doable. The game at Notre Dame, I definitely expect Duke to be competitive.
It's on national TV. It's on NBC. I mean, when was the last time a Duke football team was on a national television network? I'm excusing ESPN. I mean, the major networks. I can't remember it.
Well, it would be the Sun Bowl.
Oh, well, yeah, right. The bowl games. Yes, you're right.
Yeah,
you're right.
Yeah. I mean, outside of the bowl game. Yeah. I'm not sure when it was, but
I'll be at that game at Notre Dame. So I'm expecting to see some history made for the Duke program. So they better follow. I mean, Jason, I understand that your bet with your niece is very important. But my satisfaction actually being at the Notre Dame game, I'm just going to say it trumps it. So Duke better win that day because I'm flying out there for that.
Seeing a game at Notre Dame is probably on a lot of people's bucket list. So that's somewhat similar to people who say they want to someday see a game in Cameron. You are very, very lucky, sir. That'll be really cool. Hey, Bob, speaking of arenas and where the teams play, Duke's done some pretty significant updates to Wally Wade. Are you and your tailgate crew all ready for what's to come in Wally Wade? Are you excited about it?
Oh, very excited. So, yeah, they had the construction cameras. So I've actually been watching the construction progress over the summer. But here last week, they turned off the cameras. So, that was a big disappointment not to be able to watch the grass grow while I drank a beer. But, the stadium looks great. So I'm not too excited about all the announced new security rules they put into place, not being able to bring bags and such inside the stadium. So that's going to make it a little more difficult. But I'm very excited about the improvements to the stadium, and I'm ready to see with my own eyes on Saturday.
So last thing I want to ask you about Duke football. We've had 4 consecutive seasons where we've made bowl games. We've averaged 9 wins per season over the past 3 years. There are a lot of pundits out there who say this will be a down year, this will be a rebuilding year for the Duke football team. And that was before we lost our starting quarterback, which, quarterback, most important position on the field. I know David Cutcliffe has said that he does not believe this is a rebuilding season. What do you think he sees? What do you see that makes the two of you optimistic that Duke can continue to maintain not just the high standards, but the wins that we've seen in years past?
Well, I'll go back to, Coach Cutcliffe continually talking about building a program. So I think that in years past, if we had lost a star player basically a week before the opening game, I think that the program would have tumbled from that, and we would have been hurting badly. But there's 85 scholarship players on the team, and I think that it's going to be the next man stepping up, and I believe that Duke's going to go to a 5th straight bowl game. So it's going to be tough because the schedule is tough. I mean, it's quite possible that this football team could be a better football team than we've had the last couple of years, but not win as many games. But I do think that we will get the requisite number of wins to qualify to play in a bowl game.
I love it. I love your optimism, and I'm on board, man. This is going to happen. We're going to have a 5th straight bowl game, and I'm just really looking forward to the season getting underway. So we're going to wrap up our conversation about football. Let me ask you for this before we go. Give me a prediction for this NC Central game. What's the final score going to be?
45-10.
There you go. I'm not sure what the Vegas line is, but I'm not sure 35 points is going to cover the Vegas line, but we'll see.
For the record, I'm more optimistic. I think it's going to be over 50, but that's just me.
Yeah, and the last statement that I'll make on Duke football is I believe that the most improved position on the field in 2016 is going to be linebacker. So all Duke football fans need to keep their eye on the linebacker position.
I love it. Excellent. All right, so that's going to wrap up our football conversation. It's time to move to hoops. All right, and the big news in the hoops world, Duke fans, in case you have not heard, there is a new member of the Duke family, Alex O'Connell from Milton High School, just outside Atlanta, right in my neck of the woods, became the first commit of the 2017 class. Alex is a 6'6" wing, more shooting guard than a wing, but at 6'6", he certainly has the height to play either small forward or shooting guard, although I know at Duke there are no positions. People, please, you don't have to remind me. I know there are no positions. Alex is the son of a former Duke player. And by the way, one of the things I love about him is that Syracuse and Louisville, two of Duke's heated rivals in the ACC, had been recruiting this guy hard. They wanted him, and there were several other ACC schools. I think Miami was on him as well. There are a bunch of ACC schools that really wanted Alex O'Connell and had offered him scholarships and were arranging visits and all that other kind of stuff. They've been working on him for a long time. Duke came in, offered him a scholarship, and within like 2 days, he committed and accepted.
One day.
And said
one day.
One day, yeah. Sorry. So it's pretty clear where Alex O'Connell really, really wanted to go to school. He wanted to go to where his daddy went to school. He wanted to come play for Coach K. Sam, let me start with you. Talk to me a little bit about Alex O'Connell. Have you seen any of the YouTube highlights? How does he fit into Duke's future plans?
I haven't yet, unfortunately. I will say that just looking at his ranking and looking at the other schools that were recruiting him, he seems like he falls into the 3 to 4 year player mold as opposed to the one and done mold. And Duke has certainly had a lot of success with those guys recently, in addition to having success with the one and done guys. You have to be excited about a player who is highly recruited, but then as soon as the Duke offer comes in, bam, he's right in the truck and he's on board. And you don't get that with most guys. A lot of them, they'll say that, oh, such and such is my dream school, or I've always envisioned myself playing at a certain program. Then they'll get the offer, and then they still hang around and see who else offers and see what else is going to happen. This kid was obviously excited about committing to Duke in the way that I don't think many guys are who are at his level. And, he's probably not going to be a McDonald's All-American, which, incredibly has honestly become the standard for the program the last 4 or 5 years. But his enthusiasm and the scouting report sounds like he's going to be a key member of the program, and that he's going to develop into something special. And as you note, he's got the size to play a few different positions. So I'm excited to see what his development looks like, and in a class where at the end of this season we're going to see at least, I think at minimum, we're going to see 4 guys leave with the 2 graduating seniors plus Tatum and Giles. And then there are a number of other guys on the roster who could have big seasons and end up going pro. So while Duke is chasing a lot of big time one and done type talent players in the class of 2017, they're probably going to have a lot of roster spots to fill next year. And Alex O'Connell seems like the type of kid who's going to fit right in, because let's face it, if you're the 60 or so ranked prospect in the nation, you're probably not playing as a freshman at Duke. But in years to come, when the serious guys have left after 1 or 2 years, you're gonna get good playing time, and he's gonna get a lot of great development, under Coach K and Cable and the rest of the staff, in addition to playing against all that NBA talent that's coming through. So I think it's a big pickup for Duke. I think it's important for them to continue getting these 3 and 4 year players, because they're the ones that stick around and sort of act as that glue for the program.
One thing I'll say about O'Connell, and I know you haven't seen much tape of him, Sam. I watched a little bit. He seems very long. I mean, he's 6'6", but he's got really nice length in his arms, which is a very important thing. I mean, I'm not going to say he's Brandon Ingram, who had freakish, crazy length, but O'Connell is a guy who's going to be able to get out and play some defense because of his length. He's very athletic. I was impressed with his ability to go up and dunk the ball. He's got good range out to the 3-point line, as any shooting guard should have. Bob, do you have you noticed anything about Alex O'Connell? Got any comments here about what this guy brings to the Duke program?
Well, I agree with Sam that, looks like he's going to be a 3 or 4 year player, and that's very important. It's those players that provide continuity, and so that's an important role. And I haven't watched any of his videos, but the comments that I've read about him, he's a guy that can really shoot the basketball, and that's the type of player that we definitely value at Duke.
Yeah, as Sam said, Sam, you want to go ahead and share your comment about Alex O'Connell's future as a hated Duke player?
Oh yeah, I just wanted to note that he's white and he's a good shooter. So I apologize to everybody in advance for all of the stupid things that are going to get written about Alex O'Connell and said about Alex O'Connell and said to Alex O'Connell. He seems like a nice kid. He comes from a Duke family, so that's obviously a positive. Actually, as it turns out, his dad and my dad are in the same class at Duke. But sorry, Alex, there's going to be a lot of really, really stupid things said about you over the next 4.5 years, because that's just how these things happen. And you know what? Grayson Allen seems to be dealing with it. He even elected, in spite of maybe some people's advice, to come back for an extra year of it. After putting up an All-American season where everyone seemed to hate him everywhere. So poor guy. It stinks to be white at Duke, but you know what? He'll probably be a great player, and if people hate him, then there's a reason for it.
Yeah, Grayson Allen, John Shire, J.J. Redick have all done just fine in the world, and we should be so cursed as to have someone who even comes close to mimicking their careers or displaying similar abilities. The last thing I want to mention about Alex O'Connell before we move on, as I said at the start, he's from Milton High School, which is just outside Atlanta, Alpharetta. I could probably about a 10-minute drive from my house to get out to Milton. But I think it's very significant that Alex O'Connell didn't even really consider Georgia Tech. I've been talking for a while on the boards about the class of 2017 and the number of really, really impressive, strong players from the Atlanta area in the class of 2017. I've done some research, and it's something like 5 or 6 of the top 50 players, top 50, top 60, 5 or 6 of them are from Atlanta, which is like ridiculous. And Georgia Tech continues to strike out on all these guys, and I am terrified of what would happen if Georgia Tech started to land the local kids, but Duke continues to deny them. I think we will deny them again with another Atlanta kid who attends Pace Academy, which is really near me, Wendell Carter, who's one of the top 2 or 3 players in the class, and Georgia Tech desperately wants him, but I think Duke will frustrate them in that regard as well. And it's really nice to see Duke getting in here into my backyard and landing these kids who, when Bobby Cremins was around, Bobby Cremins always used to get the best player in the state of Georgia, and that ain't happening anymore. And it's good for the Blue Devils when we do this kind of thing. So Alex O'Connell, welcome to Duke, and I'm glad it was such an easy decision for you. Like Sam said, I love it when you offer a kid and he accepts literally the next day. He can barely get dinner and breakfast down before he tells Coach K, yes, I'm coming to Duke. It's great to have you on board, Alex. Okay, so the next basketball thing I want to get to is the Olympics. It's not technically a Duke thing, although it's a team coached by Coach K. That sounds like a Duke thing to me. Bob, did you watch much of the Olympics? Did you watch Coach K's swan song, his final victory lap as coach of Team USA?
Yes, I watched a lot of the Olympics in general, and I watched every one of the United States basketball games. So I really enjoyed the Olympics this year.
So what was your takeaway? Any reflections on what it meant for Coach K to finish up with another win. It was not as easy as it's been in past years. The championship game was pretty easy, but there were some scares along the way. Anything about how Coach K prepared this team, or anything about the content of the team, or how they performed in the games that you want to reflect on?
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised with the struggles certain players had shooting the basketball. But Coach K seemed to adapt to that with a couple of lineups that he kept the same players playing together. He had at one point early on, he moved Paul George into the starting lineup, but then he seemed to struggle in the starting lineup where he was doing really good with the second team. So he moved him back. So I really think that Coach K did a great job managing the rotation and having the players play together that fit together. And it was very enjoyable watching it. The couple of games were a struggle, but then as they moved into the last couple of games, the team as a whole really seemed to start to click and play, and you could tell that they were focused on coming away with the gold medal.
Yeah, obviously what picked up for them was the defense. It's worth noting in their last 3 games of the pool play, the U.S. gave up 88, 91, and 97 points. That's a lot of points to give up in a game. Now, I mean, I know the USA won, but in each one of those games, they gave up, 90, almost 90 or more than 90 points. Well, once they got to the knockout round, they gave up 78, 76, and 66. The defense clearly stepped up. We know how much Coach K preaches defense. It must be really hard for him. He only gets these guys for like a month, and he's got to, refine them into a team that can play cohesively together, and that cannot be easy. Sam, what about you? What are your reflections on the Olympic victory for Coach K and for Team USA?
I would rather just rewind back to 2009 and say that Coach K coached Kyrie Irving and Harrison Barnes to a championship, and everyone's happy about it. So things worked out in the end.
Did you just rewind back to before Skype Boy, before he Skyped?
Yeah, before all that stupidity, and before the fire was lit for Coach K to turn into a recruiting hound after his first Olympic championship. But no, I in all seriousness, it was very cool that they, as Bob noted, they struggled early in pool play, especially. There were a couple games that were close, that came down to the end, but that he managed to retool the lineup a little bit, get the ball to the right guys, and that by the time they got to the elimination rounds, the U.S. team was unstoppable. Which, in years past, they've struggled with a few different teams, with Spain, France, Argentina. There are countries that are producing a lot of talent and that are able to compete with the U.S. And then obviously Serbia this year, who looked pretty strong in the tournament, and then who the U.S. just blasted in the last game. Looking back on the whole Olympic experience, back from 2008 all the way to here, it's been an incredible run for Coach K and the USA players. It's easy to say, well, they're the USA-based basketball players. They're all NBA guys. They should be able to beat everybody. But even the very best teams in basketball can lose. We watched the finals this year where the Warriors went 73-9 and then went down or went up 3-1 in the series and then managed to lose. So the best players are able to lose. And this year's lineup didn't even necessarily feature the very best that the U.S. had to offer. And Krzyzewski, still manages to turn them into a winning team, despite not having them for very long, and despite a lot of the key players having played deep into the playoffs. So it's been a remarkable run for him. And it's funny now, because you read all the coverage about how folks are saying, well, all of the Olympics is an unfair advantage for K, and he gets all this additional publicity, and he gets to work with all these players, and yada, yada, yada. Back in 2008, 2006 timeframe, was anybody saying that about Duke? I mean, I feel like more of the chatter then was Duke fans saying, oh, Coach K needs to get out of USA basketball. This is a bad idea. The recruiting's gone down. He doesn't have time to focus on all of this. He's getting older, et cetera. And the script is totally flipped. And the only thing that changed was time. I mean, it's the same.
No.
Coach K.
Hold on. What changed was, I was gonna say what changed was Coach K actually got Coach K and Jerry Colangelo got the NBA and the players to buy into actually competing and working hard at this. And as a result, everyone's like, oh, this is a piece of cake. Do they not remember that George Karl and Larry Brown, a couple of Carolina guys, both failed to win gold medals? One of them failed to medal complete. I forget which one, but the U.S. finished fifth in one Olympics, didn't they?
Sixth in 2004 before they hired K.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone who goes like, oh, this is some great advantage to Duke. What about the risk that Coach K took in doing this, in committing this extra time? It takes him off the recruiting trail. And in taking on a program that was not in great shape. Team USA was not the best team in the world. And now suddenly with Coach K, they are far and away the best team in the world. And everyone's like, oh, of course they win. Well, they're winning because they had this guy who put a system in place and made it work and got the best players in the world to commit to playing his way. And they all love playing for him. God, they love playing for him.
And a number of other college coaches have sort of ridden the coattails and joined the program as either assistants or junior team coaches. And it's worked out really well for guys like Billy Donovan and Shaka Smart and all the rest of them. So, I mean, Coach K has really changed not only the senior men's national team identity, but has altered the whole landscape of the summer high school basketball circuit, because now all these guys who would have been AAU for 3 months, the very best guys, now most of them take off from AAU for a little while to play USA basketball because they know that in 4, 5, 6, 7 years, they're going to be in the NBA and they're going to be competing for the real senior team spots, and that there's some real glory and there's some real accomplishment associated with being part of Team USA. So it's not just the senior team, it's the whole program that he's built. And as Duke fans, we love talking about the building of the program, be it in basketball or football, right?
Absolutely. And he goes off into the sunset with 3 gold medals. He doesn't actually possess those medals because they don't give them to coaches, because I don't know, because that's freaking stupid if you ask me, but whatever. He doesn't actually have the medals, but he did captain or lead the ship, coached 3 gold medal winning teams. I believe that is the world record. I don't think there's anyone who has coached 4 gold medal winning teams. I could be wrong about that. I'm just pulling stats out my butt at this point. But yeah, mad props to Coach K. It's really impressive, really amazing. And I want to note one more thing about the team. While as Duke fans, we love seeing Kyrie Irving succeed, and Kyrie played really, really nicely. I was impressed with Kyrie as a facilitator, by the way. I thought that, usually we see Kyrie and he's just going one-on-one. I thought he did a much better job of involving other players than we see usually when he's in the NBA. He must have had Carmelo Anthony for open 3-pointers like a dozen or more times in some of those games.
What is it? What is it about Carmelo Anthony in international basketball where he just becomes the ultimate team player, leader, scorer, everything? I mean,
yeah, it's crazy.
He's like a different guy.
It is crazy, and it's not that he's bad in the NBA. I mean, he's a great NBA player, but yeah, you're right. It feels like he's a different player when he's playing internationally for Team USA. I don't think there are many other players who are great NBA players where your sort of image of them and their lasting impression upon you as a fan comes from their play for Team USA. There's with the exception of Charles Barkley pushing around Team Angola, there's nothing about playing for Team USA that is sort of a lasting image to me, except for Carmelo. I mean, when I picture when Carmelo Anthony retires someday, when I look back on Carmelo Anthony's career, and it probably is just because his teams have always been pretty mediocre and he's never really made it very far in the NBA. When I look back on Carmelo Anthony's career, I will think about him wearing a USA across his chest, which is really unusual.
I don't know if he's actually going to make the Basketball Hall of Fame, but if he does,
oh yeah, he will. Oh yeah.
Well, a huge part of his accomplishment and what they're going to talk about, in his ceremony and plaque and whatever is going to be his contribution to USA basketball, because it's been so tremendous.
Yeah, and he's the leading scorer in USA basketball history.
There you go.
Okay. Oh, by the way, before we jumped in on Kyrie and Carmelo, I did want to mention that I was the sort of lasting thing about Team USA that I wanted to mention was I was really glad that Paul George played a really significant role for this team. That he started some games. He was the leader on the second unit when he wasn't a starter. He was the fourth leading scorer. He was a hugely important player, one of the better defensive players in this team. Paul George gave as much as you can give to USA basketball when he blew out his knee a few years ago, and it was tragic at the time. Who knows how much it might have cost him in terms of his effectiveness as an NBA player. He's still great, really great, but I don't know if he's quite as great as he was before he got hurt, but I'm thrilled that he came back, that he played again, that he had a very, very successful Olympics, and no one deserves to dangle a gold medal, over their head, on their chest, as much as Paul George does. So I'm really happy for him.
Now, Jason, don't you know that the whole thing is a conspiracy to make Coach K look better? It's all a publicity thing, the whole Paul George thing. I mean, haven't you read the darkest corners of the internet?
Yeah, sorry. My eyes go fuzzy whenever I see that stuff. I can't read it. Okay, guys, parting shots time. Sam, did you have a parting shot? Do you have anything you want to leave the fans with before we go?
General excitement for the college football season, and specifically for this Duke team. As we talked about, there are going to be a lot of major changes this year, but I am so excited to see them get out on the field. And as I mentioned, I'm going to the game in South Bend against Notre Dame in a few weeks, and then after that for homecoming against University of Virginia. So I'm super excited that I get to watch this team on TV, especially that I get to see them in person. So that's going to be really great. I love, as everybody who listens to the show knows, I love the Duke football program. I'm excited for the direction they're going. And as Bob predicted, hopefully we are going back to another bowl game this year.
There you go. Hey, Bob, I know you're a newbie here on the DBR podcast. Did you come up with anything you want to mention to the fans before we go? Any parting shot from you?
I just wanted to thank you guys for inviting me and allowing me the opportunity to talk about Duke football. So this was a real pleasure. And I know I'll see Sam at the Virginia football game, and
yes, sir.
Hopefully Jason, you're able to make it up sometime from Atlanta and come join us at tailgate and enjoy some Duke football.
Yeah, I got to figure out a date to come on up. I think I am going to try and come up for a game because my son is a senior in high school. He's pretty sure he wants to apply to Duke, probably apply early. And I think I may try and use that as an excuse to come up and take him to a football game. Maybe try and do a football basketball doubleheader kind of thing one weekend or something like that. See if we can work that out.
I've got the day that I'm coming to Duke, I've got a tailgate for the former players because of my affiliation with the equipment staff, and then I also have a tailgate with my old a cappella group because we're having a big reunion that weekend. But I am sure that I will come out and take at least one of your beers from your cooler if you'll have me. So I'm very much looking forward to that, sir.
I'm looking forward to it too. There'll be a cold beer in there for you.
Excellent.
Guys, I'm gonna wrap us up with my parting shot. I just want to give a quick shout out, a quick mention to Ibtihaj Muhammad. I'm sure you all have heard of her. She is the Muslim American on the U.S. fencing team, the saber team to be more specific. She is a saber wielder for Team USA. She won a bronze medal as part of the team saber. She was, of course, the first Muslim woman from America to wear a hijab, a head covering, in the Olympics. She represented her nation. She represented Duke University because she's a Duke grad, and she represented all of us in fabulous fashion. There were a lot of Duke players a lot of former Dukies who were in the Olympics, but I wanted to shout out to Ibtihaj Muhammad, who I just think, it's wonderful how well she comported herself, and I think it's important that America be seen as a country of tolerance, and she was a symbol of that for us around the globe. So thank you very much. And we from Duke University are so thrilled and proud that you were part of our program. By the way, when she was at Duke, she was a 3-time All-American. So she knows what she's doing with a piece of steel in her hand. Really cool, really cool. Congrats on your bronze medal. That is something I will never even come close to achieving.
And we know that if Donald was here, that he would just be talking about the Olympics the whole time. So glad you got that in his place.
Yeah, Donald, that was for you, buddy. So that's it for us here on the DBR podcast. I'm not sure. This is like episode number 55, something like that. I don't even remember. We've done so
You'll
many
post
of them.
it, so I hope you know.
Yeah, exactly. Bob Green, again, thank you so much for joining me. Sam Klein, thanks for being here as always. Donald Wine will be back very soon. We will be back very soon. The college year has begun again. Football has begun again. And that means you can count on us on pretty much a weekly basis from here on out. Go Devils, beat NC Central. And folks, we'll talk to you next time.